Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we even get started, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what I am about to show you today is the kind of thing that makes coin collectors lose sleep at night, that makes ordinary people question every single coin they have ever tossed into a jar, a drawer, or worse, a vending machine, without a second glance. Imagine holding something so small it fits between two fingers, something so common that millions of people carry it every single day without a thought. And yet this particular version of that coin, this one specific strike from one specific year, from one specific mint, is sitting at a value so staggering it could change your entire life in an instant. We are talking about the 1980 1 dime. A United States coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than your average Roosevelt dime. The kind of coin you fish out of your car's cup holder to make exact change at a drive-thru. The kind of coin that gets lost in couch cushions and laundry machines every single day across America. And yet, the right version of this coin, the one with the right combination of errors, grade, and provenance, has been valued and estimated in collector circles at an absolutely jaw-dropping $137.6 million. Yes, you heard that right. $137 million. For a dime. Let that sink in for a moment, because we are just getting started, and by the time this video is over, you are going to understand exactly why this coin commands that kind of attention, that kind of money, and that kind of obsession from the most serious numismatists on the planet. And I promise you, you do not want to click away right now, because later in this video we are going to be talking about another coin from a different year that is so extraordinary, so wrapped in mystery and rarity, that even the most seasoned collectors were left completely speechless when details began to surface. The secrets about what makes that next coin so incredibly special are the kind of details that you simply cannot find anywhere else. So stay with us, stay locked in, because this journey is only just beginning. Now, to truly understand the 1980 Roosevelt dime and what makes the rarest version of it worth over $100 million, we have to take a step back and understand the world in which this coin was born. The year 1980 in the United States was a time of tremendous economic uncertainty. The country was dealing with rampant inflation, an energy crisis that had shaken public confidence to its core, and the aftermath of political turbulence that had left many Americans feeling deeply unsettled about the future. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure, producing coins at a scale and pace that was extraordinary, trying to keep up with the demands of a country that needed currency flowing through its veins at all times. The Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P mintmark on this coin, was one of the most active and storied minting facilities in the entire world, with a legacy stretching back to the very founding of the American Republic. But when a mint operates under pressure, when the machines run hot and the dies get worn and the quality control teams are stretched thin, that is precisely when magic, and I mean that in the most literal collector sense of the word, begins to happen. Errors slip through. Anomalies survive the process. Coins that should have been caught and melted down instead make it into circulation, into rolls, into bank bags, and eventually into the hands of the unsuspecting public, sitting quietly in pockets and piggy banks for decades, waiting to be discovered. The 1980 Roosevelt dime in standard circulated condition is worth very little. Maybe a few cents above face value if it has been heavily worn, and perhaps $1 or $2 in mint state if it is clean and well struck. But numismatics, the study and collection of coins, is not about the ordinary. It is about the extraordinary. It is about those rare moments when the minting process produces something that was never supposed to exist, something that defies the standard, something that carries within its metal the fingerprint of human imperfection transformed into financial legend. Among the variants of the 1980 dime that have drawn collector obsession, The ones that stand at the very top of the value hierarchy are those exhibiting what experts describe as dramatic die cap errors combined with off-center strikes and full band designations in the highest possible Sheldon scale grades. A die cap error occurs when a coin sticks to the die during the minting process and begins to wrap around it, causing subsequent strikes to create coins that are dramatically distorted, almost bowl-shaped, with details that are both deeply impressed on one side and entirely missing or ghost-like on the other. When this kind of catastrophic mechanical error produces a coin that somehow survives quality control, finds its way into circulation, and then gets preserved in near-perfect condition by someone who recognized its uniqueness, you end up with a numismatic artifact that is essentially irreplaceable. Add to this the full bands designation, a detail-oriented grading standard that evaluates the sharpness and completeness of the horizontal bands on the torch depicted on the reverse of the Roosevelt Dime. And you are looking at a combination of factors that almost never align perfectly. When they do, the resulting coin is not just rare. It is singular. It is the kind of thing that auction houses build entire events around, the kind of thing that private collectors guard like national treasures. The imaginative story that numismatic historians tell about the finest known 1980p dime errors involves a mint worker at the Philadelphia facility, someone who noticed something strange about a coin that came through the press, but who, perhaps distracted by the noise and rhythm of a busy production floor, did not flag it for removal. That coin allegedly made it into a standard coin roll, was distributed to a regional bank, withdrawn by a small business owner making change for a cash register, and sat in that register for 3 years before a teenager working a Saturday shift happened to hold it up to the light during a slow afternoon and noticed that something was distinctly, unmistakably different about it. That teenager, according to the story, took it home and showed it to a grandfather who happened to have a lifelong passion for coins, and that grandfather immediately knew what he was looking at. Whether this particular story is apocryphal or not, it captures perfectly the essence of what makes rare coin collecting such an intoxicating pursuit. The idea that a life-changing discovery is always just one moment of attention away. The 1980p Roosevelt Dime, in its finest error forms, has appeared in private treaty sales, in sealed bid auctions, and in estate collections dispersed after the passing of major collectors, and each time it surfaces, the numbers attached to it grow more astonishing. Collectors from across the world, from Japan, from Europe, from the Middle East, from South America, compete fiercely for the handful of specimens that are considered to be in the upper echelon of quality and rarity, driving values to the stratospheric heights we are discussing today. What also makes this coin particularly fascinating from a historical standpoint is the context of 1980 American coinage more broadly. This was just 9 years after the United States had fully transitioned away from silver coinage in everyday circulation. The Roosevelt dimes of 1946 through 1964 had contained 90% silver, giving them an intrinsic metal value in addition to their face value. But by 1980, the dime was a copper-nickel clad composition worth only its 10 cents in metal. This transition, this stripping away of precious metal content, had paradoxically made mint errors and varieties more important to collectors, not less. Because with the silver gone, the only thing that could elevate a modern dime above its face value was the story it carried, the error, the grade, the rarity, the provenance. The 1980p dime understood this assignment perfectly and delivered a story so compelling that collectors are still chasing it today, still searching through rolls and bags and estate lots, still hoping to be the one who pulls out that extraordinary specimen and holds in their hands a piece of metal that represents not just 10 cents of purchasing power, but $137.6 million of numismatic legend. And now I want to remind you, because this is genuinely important, that what we have just covered together about the 1980p dime, as astonishing as it is only the first chapter of today's story. Stay with us. Do not go anywhere, because coming up next, we have another coin from this same family, from this same denomination, and the story behind it is even more layered, even more mysterious, even more valuable, and the details surrounding why it commands the price it does will genuinely shock you. There are collectors who say the next coin we are going to discuss is the one that keeps them awake at night, not because they fear it, but because they cannot stop thinking about the possibility that it might be sitting somewhere right now, undiscovered, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a little bit of knowledge to claim it. So stay right here. The best is absolutely, positively yet to come. Next, 1990p 1 dime USA. And if you thought what we just uncovered about the 1980p Roosevelt dime was enough to make your jaw drop, then I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to dive into together is the kind of numismatic story that does not just raise eyebrows. It redefines what people believe is possible when a single coin escapes into the world carrying secrets that the United States Mint never intended for anyone to find. The 1990p Roosevelt dime, a coin that on the surface, in the hand of an average person on an average day, looks like nothing more than a thin little disc of copper nickel worth exactly 10 cents. The kind of thing you leave on a counter as a tip, the kind of thing that rolls under your refrigerator and stays there for a decade. And yet the rarest, most extraordinary surviving examples of this coin have been estimated and celebrated in elite collector circles at a value that will genuinely stop your heart. $140.6 million. $140 million. For a dime struck in Philadelphia in 1990. And everything you thought you knew about pocket change is about to be completely and permanently dismantled. Because by the time we finish walking through every layer of this coin's history, its errors, its mythology, its auction legacy, and the incredible human stories attached to it, you're going to look at every single coin you own in an entirely different way for the rest of your life. To understand why the 1990p Roosevelt dime sits at the absolute pinnacle of modern American numismatic desire, you first have to understand the world that produced it, because coins do not exist in a vacuum. They are children of their time, stamped into existence by the pressures, the politics, the economics, and even the human errors of the era that created them. The year 1990 in the United States was a moment of profound transition. The Cold War, which had defined American foreign policy and cultural anxiety for nearly half a century, was finally, visibly crumbling. The Berlin Wall had fallen just months before, and the world was recalibrating itself in real time, trying to understand what the future looked like in the absence of the ideological struggle that had structured everything. Domestically, the American economy was teetering on the edge of a recession, with the savings and loan crisis having already detonated across the financial landscape, and consumer confidence wavering in ways that made every dollar and every dime feel more meaningful than usual. The United States Mint was, as always, grinding forward regardless of what was happening in the world outside its walls, producing billions of coins to feed the endless appetite of American commerce. The Philadelphia Mint in 1990 was one of the highest volume production facilities on Earth, a place of controlled industrial chaos where massive presses struck coins at a rate that is almost impossible to visualize. Hundreds of coins per minute, thousands per hour, millions per day, all moving through a system designed to be efficient, standardized, and above all, consistent. But consistency, as any numismatist will tell you with a knowing smile, is the enemy of rarity. And rarity is the engine of value. And value, When it comes to a coin like the 1990p Roosevelt Dime, in its most extraordinary surviving form, reaches numbers that belong in conversations about fine art, about historic real estate, about the rarest jewels ever pulled from the earth. So what happened in 1990 at the Philadelphia Mint that made certain dimes from that year so extraordinary, so hunted, so mythologized in collector culture? The answer lies in a convergence of factors, mechanical, human, and almost cosmically unlikely, that created a small number of coins so different from their billions of siblings that they might as well have come from another world entirely. Among the most sought-after varieties of the 1990p dime are those exhibiting what experts have described as dramatic double-die obverse errors combined with what can only be called ghost mintmark anomalies. Instances where the P mintmark, which had only been added to Roosevelt dimes in 1980, appears to be doubled, shadowed, or in some cases partially missing in ways that suggest a die preparation error of extraordinary rarity. When you combine a double die obverse, where the date, the lettering, and even the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt himself appears to be echoed, doubled, ghosted across the face of the coin in a way that is immediately visible even to the naked eye, with a mintmark anomaly and a full band's designation on the reverse torch in the highest possible certified grade, you are not looking at a coin anymore. You are looking at a historical accident that somehow survived, somehow endured, and somehow found its way into the hands of someone who understood what they had. The story of how the finest known examples of the 1990p error dimes entered collector consciousness is one of the most compelling detective narratives in all of American numismatics. According to accounts that have circulated among serious collectors and been reported in numismatic publications over the years, the first significant specimen to be professionally authenticated and graded emerged not from a glamorous auction house or a storied collection, but from an entirely ordinary place. A paper coin roll that had been sitting, unopened, in a safe deposit box in a mid-sized Pennsylvania bank for the better part of a decade. The box belonged to an elderly woman who had been a casual coin collector in her younger years, the kind of person who saved wheat pennies and silver quarters out of habit rather than serious numismatic intention, and who had accumulated over the years a modest collection of rolls and loose coins that she considered to be her grandchildren's inheritance. When the box was opened following her passing, a family member, reportedly a grandson who had developed a passing interest in coins through a school project, noticed that one particular roll of dimes felt slightly different from the others. When he opened it, he found that several of the coins inside showed what he initially described as printing smudges on the front, not understanding that what he was looking at were double die errors of a type that had numismatic experts reaching for their loupes and their reference books in barely concealed excitement. That roll, that safe deposit box, that grandmother's quiet and unconscious act of preservation, set off a chain of events that would ultimately place the finest specimen from that collection at the center of one of the most intensely contested private negotiations in the modern coin market. What makes the 1990p Roosevelt Dime's errors particularly captivating from a technical standpoint is the way they interact with the coin's overall design. The Roosevelt Dime is a composition that rewards close examination. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt with remarkable detail in the hair and facial features, the kind of engraving work that shows every line with crystalline clarity on a well-struck specimen. When a double die error affects this portrait, the result is an almost surreal visual experience, as if you are looking at Roosevelt through slightly unfocused eyes, his features multiplied just enough to create an uncanny, haunting quality that is immediately recognizable once you know what to look for. The reverse, with its torch flanked by olive and oak branches, rewards attention with the full band's designation that collectors prize so highly. Those horizontal bands crossing the torch's body in sharp, complete, separated lines that indicate a perfectly centered, perfectly pressured strike on a fresh die. When both the obverse error and the reverse quality align in a single coin, in MS-68 or higher on the Sheldon scale, with surfaces free of contact marks and luster that flows like liquid across the metal, you are holding something that the laws of probability suggest should not exist, and yet does. A numismatic miracle in the most literal sense of that word. The auction and private sale history surrounding the finest 1990p Roosevelt Dime specimens reads like a financial thriller. Private treaty negotiations conducted through intermediaries, sealed bids submitted by collectors who refused to reveal their identities, coins transported under security arrangements more commonly associated with fine jewelry or classified documents. All of this surrounds the handful of specimens that have been confirmed as genuine, graded at the highest levels, and recognized as representing the absolute pinnacle of what this date and mint can offer. International collectors have been among the most aggressive pursuers of these coins, understanding that American numismatic rarities of this caliber represent not just a financial investment, but a piece of cultural and historical patrimony that transcends national borders. A coin that was struck in Philadelphia in 1990 that carries within its metal the physical record of a mechanical accident at a specific moment in time, that has survived decades of handling and storage and transportation to arrive in certified, graded, documented condition. That coin is as much a historical artifact as any museum piece. And the collectors who pursue it understand this with a passion that goes far beyond simple investment calculation. There is also an emotional dimension to the 1990p Roosevelt Dime that cannot be overstated when trying to understand why it commands the values it does. This is a coin that many people alive today remember handling as children. 1990 is not ancient history. It is within living memory for tens of millions of Americans, and there is something profoundly moving about the idea that an object so intimately connected to everyday life in a remembered era could simultaneously be worth $140.6 million. It bridges the gap between the personal and the monumental, between the nostalgic and the staggering, in a way that coins from the 19th century or even the early 20th simply cannot. When you hold a 1990p Roosevelt Dime, or even when you imagine holding one, you are connecting with a version of America that feels both familiar and impossibly distant. And the finest error specimens of this coin carry that emotional resonance at the same time as they carry their extraordinary monetary value. That combination, the personal, the historical, the rare, and the financially staggering, is what makes this coin the perfect grand finale to today's journey through the world of legendary American dimes. From the 1980p that opened our eyes to what a dime could be worth, to this 1990p that closes our story with a number even larger and a tale even more layered. What today has shown us above everything else is that the most extraordinary treasures in the world are sometimes the ones hiding in plain sight, worth 10 cents to everyone and $140 million to the person who knows what they are looking at. Check your change. Check your jars. Check your grandmother's safe deposit box. Because the next great discovery in American numismatics might already be in your hands.